Here we go. I've got my 25D completely dismantled, and thanks to a suggestion from my brother, I've worked out a nice easy way to mount the drive dog. You look down there, you see it sitting neatly on the shaft, and what I did was I knocked the pin that holds the Morris drive dog out of the shaft, and thanks to a suggestion from my very clever brother, because the shaft of the distributor is not actually hardened, I mounted the shaft in my drill press and then used a couple of files to carefully file down the end so that the Nissan drive dog now fits neatly on the shaft. And the original Morris drive dog will just be like a retaining collet. That should work pretty well, I reckon. The drive dog fits neatly now on the shaft. It was only about less than a millimetre out, so I didn't have to file very much off it. And it's concentric. It should do the job perfectly. I just have to drill a hole through the shaft for the retaining pin. As the shaft's not hardened, that shouldn't be too difficult. Just a matter of clamping the shaft into my drilling vise and very carefully drilling it out with a nice new drill, which I'll have to wait till Tuesday to buy. But that should do the job nicely. To make this whole thing work, I'm going to have to bore out the centre of that Nissan distributor housing so that I can slot in this distributor spigot out of a Morris engine. And hopefully when I press the two together, it should be perfectly concentric with the case, so the drive dog will work perfectly off the cam. And to retain it, I'm going to use epoxy putty, both from this side. You see all those little depressions? They'll all be gone, and so I'll put epoxy putty that will both seal the case so the engine oil doesn't get into it, and help align the spigot so it's perfectly concentric. So once the spigot is pushed in and located, then I'll fill in all the gaps. You'll see the gap between the casing and the spigot. Once again with that epoxy putty, which dries hard and is quite durable. I've used it before, and it will hold the spigot into the old distributor housing, which I will probably trim off. I'll trim it off so that it's level with this point here, which is about the same thickness as the distributor spigot from the Morris engine. Once that's all sort of fixed in place, then of course the 25D will just slip straight in and ought to work perfectly. Well, that's the plan. The other bit that I've been working on is the thermostat housing off the motor. If you look closely here, you can see where I have removed one of the feed pipes that originally went to the Nissan manifold, and I've carefully blocked it up with epoxy putty. If you look inside there, now it's pretty good. I've used it before for coolant system repairs, so it should be fine to block up that pipe, and should do the job nicely. Now, a nice little detail that I discovered when I pulled it apart, that normally sits like that on the motor, and the cap goes back facing that way, because then a pipe goes around to the side of the engine. But Nissan have been kind enough to make the three retaining bolts all equidistant around the circle, so I can actually turn the hose spigot around so that I won't have to run such long coolant pipes as I had with the original engine.